So the British gave up their last colonies in Africa half a century ago, but they left their wigs behind. Not just any wigs, they are the long white horse locks worn by High Court judges and King George III. They are so old-fashioned and so uncomfortable that even British barristers have stopped wearing them. But in former British colonies like Kenya, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Malawi and others, they live on, worn by judges and lawyers. Now, a new generation of African jurists is asking, why are the continent's most prominent legal minds still wearing the trapping of the colonizers? It is not just a question of aesthetics. The wigs and robes are perhaps the most glaring symbol of colonial inheritance at a time when that history is being dredged up in all sorts of ways. Now, we need some history lessons from the wigs and the reason behind why our judges keep wearing these colonial wigs. So, let me take you through some history of these wigs. The practice of wearing wigs by judges has its origin in British legal tradition and was adopted in many British colonies, including several African nations. So during colonial rule, many aspects of British culture, including its legal system and traditions, were imposed on the colonies. This includes attire worn by judges and lawyers in British courts, which often featured wigs. As a result, when these colonies gained independence, some legal tradition and attire, including the wigs, were retained. The legal profession often practiced a strong emphasis on tradition and continuity. Wearing wigs can be seen as a way of maintaining a connection with the historical roots of the legal system and demonstrate respect for the rule of law. Wearing a wig can be seen as a way of judges to protect image of authorities, impartialities, and neutrality. The idea is that by wearing a uniform wig, the judge's personal identity is somewhat obscured, emphasizing that they are acting in their capacity as a representative of the law rather than as an individual. This is some history behind these wigs. But what many Africans are now trying to understand is that why can't we now impose our own culture and our own tradition on this particular subject? We can't maintain everything that was left by the British. It's about time Africans start reflecting and going back to their roots. Because anytime you go to court in Africa and you see all these prominent lawyers and judges wearing this wig, it somehow becomes hilarious. It makes people not taking them serious. So that is why people are asking, why can't our judges remove these wigs so that we can gain our respect or the respect these institutions stand for? For some few years, Pan-Africanism and a way of liberating Africans has become a major subject in the media industry. Most Africans, especially YouTubers like me and on other platforms, are now trying to liberate Africans through social media. And as we started trying to liberate or trying to educate people about African culture and what African values and what Africans stand for, we normally come across a lot of questions like, why is this guy carrying this foreign name? Why is this guy carrying these colonial names? So what we are doing is, most of the things is unchangeable, like giving people's name, but we can start from somewhere. Whatever we are doing, we can start from somewhere by now understanding the situation we find ourselves. So it's about time Africans sit down, reflect on ourselves, and understand how come our systems are not developing. How come we are not improving based on all these resources we have? How come we are still not developing? Or how come we are not able to compete with the world when it comes to economic challenges? And that is what we have realized. It's about time Africans understand where we are coming from and impose our culture, impose our values on ourselves. Because any nation that don't understand its culture or that don't understand its values is in the process of failure. And that is what has happened to most of African countries, and that is what we are trying to avoid in the future generation. So this topic is very necessary for us to start addressing all these things one by one. After addressing this, we also have to come to our education, our educational systems. The way the British put in place is the same way which has been maintained up to date. So for now, many Africans will go to school, complete school, and they find themselves not being employed because the world is changing and most African countries' educational systems are not changing. Now, the world is more about entrepreneurship, innovations, and talent. But most of our educational systems only teaches subjects that will allow you to work for somebody for peanut money. There are a lot of problems we have to address, especially those legacies that was left by the British colonies. They left a legacy that is now affecting most of African countries, and that is what we want to address. We are not against any Western countries. We just want to liberate ourselves from the traditions and culture and values that was imposed on Africans, and that is what we are trying to avoid, so that it won't have a future repercussion like how it has done to some of us. There are a lot of things we have to change in our system, but these issues we are going to address it one after the other. So please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I will upload any great content, you will be notified. Thanks for watching.